up, my ducks? It's Simon here. Welcome back to the Hermit's Cave. Hope everybody's having a lovely weekend. If you was in Cuppa Catch Up and Cards last night, you'll have heard me mention that I was going to do a tarot tag. In fact, I mentioned that there's two that I've been thinking about recently, and I was trying to decide which of the two I wanted to do, which I think might get more of a community kind of interaction going. And then I thought, well, I'll do both, but I won't do them both at the same time. I'll probably do this one and then maybe next Sunday or the Sunday after do a second one. But you'll have seen from the title that this hashtag is a journey through decks. Sorry, tarot journey through decks. I was going to call it a journey through decks, but I want tarot in there because most of the people who watch my channel enjoy the content around tarot. Even though I do other things like some travel vlogs and things like that, the tarot seems to be, you know, it's where I started and it's kind of my core base of subscribers. So there are 4 prompts, but the idea of this tarot deck really is because many of you know my journey, particularly with tarot. However, I am mindful that there's been, over the last couple of years, quite a few new subscribers who might not have had time, and let's be honest, 1,700 videos, won't have time to go back and watch, although some have. I've been really impressed with some people that say I've been watching your back catalogue of videos, which, wow, hats off to those people. But, you know, people are subscribing all the while and might not know my history. Or even if you've been here a long time, you might know my history to some degree in terms of my divinatory practices over the last, what's almost coming up to 40 years, but 38 years. And how that's evolved over time. But the main purpose of me doing this tag really is not necessarily for me to share my journey, but I really want to know yours. If you're watching, you don't have to be a content creator to take part. You can use the tag on Instagram, or you can share yours in the Hermit's Cave Facebook group and tell us your tarot journey. If you are a content creator, great, you know, use the hashtag and I'll be watching everybody who responds, because the idea is I'd love to hear how your practice has evolved over time. And I really want this tag to encourage, how can we put it, some personal storytelling, really. They're the tags that I really like to watch, is where I'm hearing about people's stories. Real lives, real people, real experiences with the tarot and the journey that it's took them on. So, and I just think that will bring a real sense of community connections. Because I think invariably when we do these tags, we often see similarities between our own stories and that of others. So without further ado, let's begin. So the tags are going to be the beginning, the deepening, the now, and the milestones. But the first 3 are in order, but the milestones you can put in at any point, and I'll explain why as we go along. So we'll start with the beginning, how it all started for me. It started with this. Push this back so we can hopefully, let's have a look at the camera. Yeah, that's in shot. This was my first ever tarot deck. Back in 1987, I was 16 years of age. It was the year I left school. I got my first job at a theme park, and there was a lady there who used to read tarot cards. And she gave me a reading one morning while I was waiting. You used to have to go into an office, wait for the managers to give you your floats for your, because we worked in retail, and the keys to whatever shop you was going to be opening up and working in that day. And while we used to obviously get there early, sit around, have a Max Pax cup of tea from a drink machine that they used to give you tokens for. She brought out her tarot deck and said, "Would you like a reading?" And I was like, "Ooh." And to be honest, I was a little bit apprehensive at first. Again, most of you will know I came from a very religious background that I rebelled against in my teenage years, went back into during my 20s. And yeah, tarot was a big sort of no-no. And I'd seen it on things like Tales of the Unexpected and James Bond, and every time, they really intrigued me, but every time I said, "Oh," to my parents, "What are they?" It was very much, keep away from that sort of thing. But I had this tarot reading and I really enjoyed it and I got a real kick out of it. And I said to her, I'd love to be able to get a tarot set of my own so I could really learn this and practice with it. And she said she was going into Nottingham. I didn't live in Nottingham then. And I gave her some money and she picked me up this set. And as you can see, it's the 1JJ Swiss. It wasn't expensive. Going back 38 years, maybe between £5 and £10, if that. And the great thing about this is you get your cards and you get a little book, but you also got, which I found really helpful, you got a map to lay your cards out with, and it's the Celtic cross. I won't show it you all, but you all know what the Celtic cross lies. So that really helps. It would say card 3 is goal or destiny, card 1 is your current position, etc. So being able to lay out the cards onto that map helped me to do some readings. However, this deck, this one is in order because I've not used it, and I'll explain why. I've got a couple of others. This deck is a pip deck. Now, I looked at an image like that, and as a 16-year-old, I didn't have a clue. So all I would do is I just took out the major arcana, and that's all I work with. I would do readings using these 22 cards. And that's how I kind of went on for some time. I loved these images. And if you ever find your old children's storybooks and you see the pictures and memories come flooding back, that's what this did to me when I picked this deck up again in 2016. 30 years later, almost 29 years later, still love this deck. I managed to get an original copy with the gold base box with this beautiful paper feel deck of the early the 1970 nice papery feel decks, US game style decks. So I keep that. My preferred JJ Swiss is one that Conrad Stein produced, which is a vintage style, and these aren't in order because this is the one I grab the most, and I love it. It's a proper tarot size because the other's a little bit smaller. Cardstock is nice. It's on the Make Playing Cards Superior Smooth, and like I said, it's got this vintage feel to it. And yeah, I've always and will always love the 1JJ Swiss, and that is the deck that started it all for me. Now, what happened, as I mentioned, when I got into my early 20s, I kind of got back into religion, organised religion, and in the Mormon church in particular. And again, tarot is an absolute no-no. And I was there until 2000, the year 2000, 2001. And I cannot tell you what happened to that original deck. I don't know whether in moving it got lost, whether I gave it away. I hope I didn't throw it away, but that could have happened. I just don't know what happened to it. It's just a memory of having that deck and reading with it for people, particularly my sister. My sister always used to say, give me a tarot reading. But yeah, I don't know what happened to it. So after I left the church officially in 2001, I experienced that hole in the soul, as it's often referred to, because I'd had a spiritual life, a spiritual practice. And I started going to psychic fairs. I learnt Reiki and became a Reiki master. I did crystal healing. I got really into crystals. And mind, body, spirit fairs, all that sort of stuff. I practiced runes and you name it. Pendulums, I really loved working with pendulums. And it really kind of fulfilled that hole, and I felt like, you know, I was broadening, because for me, particularly being a Mormon, the path is very narrow, and you're eye single to one particular way of life. And I felt that, you know, my whole sort of spiritual practice just opened wide up, and I was absorbing lots of different belief systems. I looked into nearly every religion, although I firmly knew that organized religion was no longer for me. I loved more sort of esoteric and nature-based. I used to go to sweat lodges and shamanistic practices, all that sort of stuff. And around that time, I went to a fair which was called Mr. Gifford's Psychic Fair. And Miriam Gifford, who's still with us, Mr. Gifford isn't, sadly, was on the door of this big leisure centre hall where I think there's over 100 stands in there, lots of talks and workshops. And as I paid my entrance fee, she took my hand and she said to me, do you know that you're clairsentient? And I was like, okay, what's that then? Because I've heard of clairaudient and I've heard of clairvoyance. And she said, you feel things, you sense things, you work with energies and vibrations. And she started talking to me, and a lot of the things she was saying was really starting to make sense. Anyway, as I went round the day, I really enjoyed the day. I approached her at the end of the day and said, look, you know, I want to know more about this. And she said that she ran a development group, a development circle. And I started to attend that development circle on Friday evenings. And this particular week, because we did all sorts of stuff, candle magic one week, you know, lots of different things. This particular week, she said, we're going to look at using cards. We're going to do cartomancy. And she says, in the back room, because it was always at her house, these development circles, I've laid out a load of decks. There's angel decks, there's tarot decks, there's oracle decks, you name it. I've laid them out. Go and have a look through. There's only a small group of us, maybe 4, I think, from memory. And I was particularly good, by the way, at psychometry. And again, that led into what she was saying about being clairsentient. And I went through, and laying on the table was Soul Cards by Deborah Croft Chapin. And I picked these up, and she said to me, which is the wrong thing to say to me, no, I wouldn't start with them. She said, because they're quite difficult and they're quite advanced. I would start with an angel deck. And I just said to her, I don't know where I found it, because normally I'd be like, oh, okay. I said to her, no, actually, I'm really called to work with these and I'd like to have a go. And the beautiful thing about soul cards is that they don't have any titles, they don't have any numbers or books to look up meanings. You basically look at the image. It's done by touch drawing. You look at the image and you interpret that image, you know, as you see fit in terms of who you're reading for, etc. And I found that this this deck just really, you know, was fantastic for me as somebody who felt things and worked with energies. It was almost like the deck triangulated the energy that I was picking up from the other person, and through the cards was helping me make sense of that. So I found this to be a fabulous tool. So this for me is the milestones. So the milestone is any other deck, so it doesn't have to be tarot, any other decks that marked a significant point in your tarot journey. Now, in recent years, and I keep it in this beautiful bag that my big sis Giselle did for me, I got another set of soul cards, and we created, I say we, members of the community, created a tarot deck out of it. So, you know, as you can see here, we've got the page of water. So it's a water symbol I put on P for page, water. This is my page of water. And then, oh, I mean, isn't that just the sun card? Temperance, the fire and the water. So they do really lend themselves to, you know, to the elements and to the tarot. So here we have our Queen of Earth, our King of Earth, our Chariot. Look at that sense of movement here, particularly through a storm, staying, you know, on course. Here's the Fool. So even though, and I had to have both, I had to have my soul cards that I've used now for, gosh, 24 years. And then I wanted to show you the tarot version. So the beginning, as I said, was my what started it all for you, which was the 1JJ Swiss. But I'm putting the milestones in here because this was a significant milestone. And this really helped me to read for people. Because in 2002, after having these cards for a year, Soul Cards 2 came out. So I've got two sets, that's what this is. So some are blue backs, some are maroon backs, Soul Cards 1 and 2. I started doing parties. So it was a small business that I ran, set up, and I would go to people's houses, you know, particularly lots of giggly girls that were drinking lots of wine, but they'd have their friends over, and I'd go into a room and I'd do readings, and it was always with these. And the readings were really, really quite accurate, particularly from what they were feeding back anyway. So this really got me used to reading for other people a lot, whereas the 1JJ Swiss was just kind of like for me and my sister and my close friends. Whereas this helped me to read for people I'd never even met before. So that's where I'm placing milestones. You could place it anywhere in the 4. Okay. So following on from using soul cards, from 2001 when I got Soul Cards 1, 2002 got Soul Cards 2, started doing readings for people. I did get that draw back to tarot, where I kind of thought, you know, I used to read tarot and I know I didn't really do it properly, and I needed that sheet, and I only used a certain amount of cards. And I don't know where or who said it, but somebody said to me, you should get the Rider-Waite because, you know, they're easier. They've got pictures on them. And so in 2008, so what's that now? 17 years ago, I was living here where I am now. I've been here 2 years at that point. And the deck that was readily available from W.H. Smith downstairs, the only tarot deck really that they had in was the original Rider-Waite tarot pack. Now we now refer to this quite rightly by putting Pamela Coleman Smith into the title, and we call it the Rider-Waite-Smith, the RWS Tarot Pack. And I bought this. Again, it's got a Celtic cross, but just your positions in there. It's got the key to the tarot. It does have a little bit here about Pamela Coleman Smith, which was nice. And I bought this, and I wasn't that enamoured by it. I still, to this day, find it quite blotchy. I mean, it's okay, but it's, compared to the versions that we can get today, it did feel a bit, yeah, just, you know, when people say to me now, I look at the RWS and I just can't really connect with it, I don't really like the artwork. I often wonder if they've got a version like this. But anyway, I used it, I started reading with it, and I bought a book. It's still on the shelf, actually. It's very dog-eared now, after all these years. But I bought the Tarot Bible by Sarah Bartlett. This has been re-released, and it's got a completely different design. And the pages, you know, this got a lot of use. But I still think, and if you can get this, it's a brilliant book, because it's not just, it goes through the history of the tarot and everything, you know. It's not just about the card meanings, everything you want to know really about tarot, with some spreads, relationship spreads, how to use destiny spread. It's got everything in here, and all the associations with the elements, etc. It's a great little resource book, and it really helped me with learning RWS. So yes, that is in a long way talking about my beginnings through to the Milestone deck. So that then takes me to the next prompt, which is the Deepening. Okay, and the Deepening is a deck or decks that helped you grow, learn, or deepen your practice. So bearing in mind, we're up to the 2000s. From 2008, I've been working with the Rider-Waite-Smith, but still using my beloved soul cards. And then I started buying some Oracle decks around 2015, 2016. And one in particular, I was in Waterstones and I saw this deck. It was a Rumi deck, and I'd got some books on Rumi, some poetry books, and I loved Rumi's writings. And I saw this deck and I thought, oh, how intriguing. It's Rumi, and it's in an Oracle deck. And I think there was a couple of images on the back and I couldn't really see them that great. So I didn't buy it, came home, and I was thinking about, oh, do I go back and get that deck? And I thought, let's see if I can see anything online about it. Typed in Rumi Oracle into Google, and it brought up, you know, where you can buy it, that sort of thing. Then a little bit further down, there's a line that said videos. And I saw a video, and I thought, oh, this is a good idea, because I might get to see all the cards. Clicked on the video. It was somebody called Maven Unmasked, Ariel from Maven Unmasked. And she was doing a walkthrough, and I thought, this is brilliant. You know, she's showing you what you get when you open the box. This is the book, these are the cards, this is the size of the card, this is what the card stock's like. I was like, card stock, why is that important? Now I'm the one that goes on about it the most. And that was my sojourn into TarotTube, basically. From that, I discovered everyone. Kelly Bear, I discovered Kelly at the Truth in Story, Patrick from In the 78 Cards, as he was then, and this whole world opened up. And I started going to Kelly's lives on a Saturday night, and she started talking about this concept called March of the Pips. So through the month of March, working with pip decks. And my first thought was, oh, crikey. That's what I had right in the beginning in the 80s, and I couldn't use them. But she was asking who's going to sign up for March of the Pips. So I was like, yeah, okay, sign me up. And I could show any Marseille deck here because I can't even remember which Marseille deck I started working with. But what I am going to show is my original copy. This isn't the one with the floral backs. I've got that as well. But I started working with Tarot des Eaux Arcs, and I loved this. Absolutely beautiful. I love the kind of the fact they're all on different coloured backgrounds, that it's quite rudimentary in terms of the sketchiness of it, and then the paint. Absolutely adore this deck. And this is certainly a deck or a system, pip system being, is what I'm talking about, where I had to go deep with it, because I could no longer rely on an image like a soul card image that I could necessarily get an intuitive hit from, or the RWS image that gave me a scene. So I looked at the scene because I am somebody who, particularly as a child, if I had a storybook, and I was really encouraged to read, because what I would do is I'd look at the pictures, turn the page, keep looking at the pictures, and create my own story based on the pictures in the storybook. And teachers and parents, everybody else were like, no, read the words. And it's important that we do that. But as a kid, I would make stories up based on the pictures, whether they went along with it or not. And so that's why the RWS and things like soul cards was really, really good for me. But then being presented with a deck that, you know, like we've got here, an eight of coins, I would have to learn that 8, you know, was about power. 8 is also about abundance. What does that mean when looking at it from an earth suit? You know, earth is our earthly realm. It's our worldly experience. It's the reality around us, our home life, our work, all that sort of thing. So again, depending on the question, what does that mean in terms of abundance or power, authority? So it really, really got me to go deeper, because I couldn't just rely on what I was seeing in images. I had to learn about numerology. I had to learn more about the elements associated. So here, what have we got? We've got the 3 of Cups. So that's about expansion, isn't it? It's about growth and going in a new direction, like if you imagine 3 points like an arrowhead. So where are we emotionally? You know, how are we expanding emotionally? Is our emotions taking us in a particular direction, which would lead to our lives opening up and expanding more by being more emotionally in tune? So again, it gives you a jumping off point, and again, it will be depend on what the querent is asking as you're giving them readings, or what I'm asking as I'm coming to these cards. But absolutely gorgeous. The 4, that's around the stability, structure. I always liken it to 4 legs on a chair. It gives you structure, it gives you stability. If you add 2 legs on a chair, you're just going to topple over. So you've got that that structure, that order, and when you think about the 4, like the emperor, you know, that sort of stability, order, structure. 5 is for me, it's about the change. Often hear it talked about a disruptive element, and it can be, but it's not always disruptive. Change isn't always disruptive. It's our attitude towards it a lot of the times. But yeah, so that is the deck, or system I should say, but I'm showing this deck because this is my favourite Tarot de Marseille, which responds, which is, you know, my kind of response to the prompt, the deepening. Okay. So the next prompt is the now. So we've got the beginning, the deepening, the now, but you can put your the milestones in anywhere you want. I put mine in between the beginning and the deepening. So the now is the deck that currently resonates with you the most. Okay. And I did mention RWS, but in that sort of lineage. Now, this is not going to be a surprise to anyone, but the deck that resonates with me the most is the Rider-Waite-Smith. So as you know, or maybe you don't, but I have a lot of tarot decks. I've got nearly 1,000 tarot decks. I love them. I use them. But I always come back. Now this is the one that's in the Tashin set, so it will be in order. I don't read with this one, but I do think it's a good one to show you whilst talking. So I use this kind of like, because I've got so many, I can use any. I just want this one in a pristine condition because it's part of £100 set of book and cards. But no matter how many decks I get, whatever theme they are, I mean, there's been some wonderful decks, particularly in the last year. If I think about Tarot of Echoes, wow, that resonates. Or I think about the Curious Travels, beautiful. And I love them. And I will say each year, you know, this is one of the best decks of the year. No matter how many decks I get, the deck that resonates with me the most is the Rider-Waite-Smith. And I've heard mentioned so many times, you know, it's that old adage, if your house is on fire and you could only grab one deck, what would it be? It would be this. Maybe it would be the one that I keep in this box, which is my Blushing Fool. So I'd probably just grab this box if my house is on fire, and off I'd go. But that said, any RWS, and again, I mentioned this one earlier. Now I didn't like it because it was blotchy. That it's, for me, it's just it's a poor printing version, and there are so many versions of this. I even showed you the one in the last week that came, the Constantinople Tarot by Marco Benedetti, that he did, handmade one, beautiful. But for me, this is the tarot. Even though it wasn't my first deck, it was one JJ Swiss, well, a Besançon really, but a Marseille style deck. This is the one that, if someone says to me the tarot, what comes to mind is this deck. And it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. And I think if anybody talks about what their favourite deck is or their soul deck, it's the one that touches you deeply, but it's the one you would reach for the most, because you're comfortable with it. It's like an old friend or an extension of yourself. You know, I carry this around with me all the time. My work bag has an RWS deck in there. I'm never without it. So it goes everywhere with me, and it's just that friend. So maybe a little bit full circle, but the beginning, you know, I couldn't read with TDM, so I just used the majors. And then the deck that deepened my practice was finally getting to grips with TDM, and, you know, not having scenic images to prompt me, to, you know, the milestone decks in between that aided my practice, to where we are now, which is my beloved soul deck, my number one. And I think this will always be my number one. there is an RWS deck that's coming to me now, which is somewhere somewhere in the world on its way to me, and it's an RWS deck. It's got different embellishments and things, which I'll share with you, but it's these images. It's Pixie's artwork that is tarot for me, and the deck that I won't ever be without. And I really can't see anything being created that would ever take this deck's place. It's been with me for too long, and I've used it too many times. Okay, so anyway, this is Tarot Journey Through Decks. This is my tarot journey of the last 38 years, from 1JJ Swiss to my soul deck of RWS, and everything that helped me in between to become the tarot reader that I am now. I really hope that you respond. As I said, you don't have to be a tarot creator. If you're in the Hermit's Cave Facebook group, please still use the hashtag in there, hashtag Tarot Journey Through Decks. Or you can even comment if you're not on Facebook. Not everybody is on Facebook. You could do some responses on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, just leave your comments below. Any is fine. And if you are a YouTube content creator, please consider doing it. And because I just think, as I said, it will help you encourage your personal story that has shaped your tarot experience as well. And I think it would really foster that community connection. Thank you for watching, everybody. Until next time, go in peace. Namaste and blessed be.